Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to today's podcast. It's Cody, Gotham's Capes Crusader, and we're keeping it geekly. Yes, this is your number one stop for all things geek culture, from comic books to video games and so much more. And man, oh man, am I excited, because not only do we have some heavy-hitting news, we have some fresh Marvel comics right off the press. So without further hesitation, let's go ahead and dive right in and let's check out what's going on in the geek world. So one of the most shocking pieces of news I was able to come across this week was the Fall Guy studio accidentally leaked their source code onto Steam. You heard that right. It looks like Fall Guy game developer Mediatonic accidentally leaked their source code onto Steam a couple days ago. What makes the situation even more hilarious, though, is the folder was called Back Up This Folder, but Don't Ship It With Your Game. Now, it would appear this is automatically generated by Unity to contain data required to debug the game, but that doesn't take the hilarity away from the situation. Now, with Fall Guys already kind of combating a lot of cheaters in the industry, this is only going to be an open playing field for more to come, so I'm interested in seeing what they're going to do and how they're going to rectify this situation. It's always unfortunate whenever a game has a community of cheaters like so strongly invested within it, but now they pretty much just opened it up even further by leaking that source code, and this enables them to create even more effective cheats to come. Now, on to other matters, it looks like Sony finally gave us some more color options with their controller, and to be honest, I'm pretty excited. So with the PS5 releasing in November, it's been quite some time, and we've been stuck with the bland white controller scheme for a long time, and outside of just going ahead and modding it yourself, there hasn't been any other option for us to indulge in as Sony consumers. So the Midnight Black controller is going to have two different tones of black, while the Cosmic Red is going to be the red upper half with the black tone underneath. So kind of think the white controller with just a Cosmic Red appeal, and that's the one I'm aiming for. That's the one that has the most appeal to me. Now this brings us to our last piece of news in this week of Geek. It looks like Apex Legends is going to update their roster, and this is going to be a character that the fans have been pleading for some time. With Respawn confirming that Season 9 of Apex Legends was going to be very Titanfall heavy, there's been no confirmation of Ash, which has been a very talked about potential character for the franchise. Ash is a simulacrum pilot and antagonist from Titanfall 2, and even though she hasn't been dropped yet, there's been a leak that's potentially placing her to drop pretty soon. With Valkyrie joining the ranks not too long ago, that was kind of the speculation that we would see Ash follow suit, since Valkyrie's father, Viper, was a pilot who was killed in Titanfall 2. It would appear that Reddit user Spandex Hero 18629 posted a now deleted Twitter image that showed Ash in-game along with some of her tactical abilities, one of which appears to be some sort of dash. Now, as you can see, the image itself, it's kind of hard to tell if it's legitimate. This could very well be doctored just to kind of feed into the frenzy, but only time really will tell. Now, with that being said, guys, that does wrap up this week in Geek for us, but stay tuned. We got those fresh posts coming right out the oven. All right, guys, our first Marvel comic today is going to be Guardians of the Galaxy issue 14, Legacy issue 176, written by Al Ewing, with art being done by Juan Friguri. Now, this issue begins pretty fiercely. We see Doom holding the Sword of Space, which only a king can wield, and at this point, he proclaims himself Kings of Lesser Beings, and before him stands the Guardians of the Galaxy, just completely decimated, with Emperor Hulkling kneeling before him. Emperor Hulkling, aka Kaplan Altman, at this point stands up and uppercuts him, giving the Guardians of the Galaxy enough time to regain their composure. And it's at this point we see Doom and Altman lock gazes, and Doom has a trick up his sleeve as he does a mind shift and effectively takes Altman's body. Now, it's at this point when he's in control of Altman's body, he then thrusts that sort of space into a comrade's stomach. And I was led to believe this person was going to be dead, but this sword is able to distinguish friend from foe and only disrupted their magical abilities, just taking them out of the fight. This does give Star-Lord enough time to fire off a round from his elemental gun, but that's easily deflected into Rocket's rocket launcher and destroys it. But this gives Gamora enough time to come out of left field and hit him with a rocket that he was not suspecting, which then does effectively take him down for a few moments. We see Nova dive in, trying to get the upper hand himself, but Doom is able to take him down. And at this point, he initiates a AI protocol that is able to be controlled using audio output. So the suit that Altman's mind is in is now fighting alongside with Doom. So you have two Dooms versus the Guardians of the Galaxy, and it is going to be a climatic battle. Meanwhile, the B team is on RimWorld 360 3715, observing Sister Talinus's ritual, which is mentioning some sort of sacrifice. It's a pretty particular planet. They do acknowledge at some point. It appears that it was either terraformed or it was migrated here because it's the perfect spot for scroll magic. And it's at this point that we see a pretty insane panel, because the planet actually speaks and it lets them know that it's ego. And this is going to be another climatic battle that's happening. There's just so much going on in this issue, and it is just pretty chaotic on all fronts. Now, what makes this a really interesting read is the fact that the Guardians of the Galaxy have to be very, very careful in how they plan their attack, because they could accidentally hurt Altman, or worse, even kill him. Meanwhile, the B team is going up against a freaking planet. So it does get really insane, and I will tell you hands down, this was a phenomenal read. I am so excited I dove back into Marvel, because, man, this book was just phenomenal. Now, this is going to lead us to another great read, which is Fantastic Four issue number 32, Legacy issue 677, written by Dan Slott, with art being done by Javier Rodriguez. We arrive at the Baxter building with Johnny Storm testing the new deep space communication with Crystal. He needs some advice because he's not ready to fully commit to the new girl he's seeing named Sky. These two engage in some pretty genuine conversation, but then Crystal does have to leave the room, giving her daughter, Luna Maximoff, enough time to get on. And while her eyes are just glowing this really crazy looking green, she proclaims that Johnny Storm is going to make a choice that's going to be not only the wrong choice, but it's going to mess everything up, and then cuts the call. Expedition of Latvian artifacts, and this is protected by none other than Victorious, which is Doom's right-hand man, or woman, I should say. What's really interesting is Alicia's Dr. Doom sculpture is what got them into this museum anyways, but Victorious laughs at it and moves it out of the other room. She's there to guard these artifacts with her life. And we see that happen pretty soon, as there is some rumbling in the crowd, and it looks like there's something nefarious afloat. So we see Sky and Johnny eventually having a more intimate moment, and then Sky appears out of nowhere, which really sparks some rather interesting looks towards who came with Johnny Storm. And then it's revealed that it's none other than his ex-girlfriend, Lyra. And I think I said that right. My apologies if I mispronounced that. And this does inflict some pretty crazy animosity between the two. Johnny's current girlfriend and his ex pretending to be his current girlfriend, and then not only that, but calling his current girlfriend and then making her believe that she wasn't allowed to come. We see the Thing getting ready for his classic clobbering time, but his wife actually persuades him otherwise, and with him leaving the scene, we see the nefarious crowd spring onto the scene, and a climatic battle does happen. We see the Fantastic Four teaming up with Victorious, but with Johnny Storm and his girlfriend bickering and fighting, and then we see his girlfriend and his ex bickering and fighting. It's really Victorious that takes the helm of everything, but she ends up destroying a priceless amount of artifacts, so she's actually barred from ever coming back, and she's pretty certain Dr. Doom is going to be upset. Things wrapping up, we do see Sky leave the scene. She needs some time to think before she even wants to talk to Johnny, and we see his ex accept the cold truth, and she parts ways, pretty much never to be seen again. This is what I'm led to believe. Now, while I was expecting a huge throwdown between the Fantastic Four and Victorious, was not expecting Johnny Storm to be left all by his lonesome at the very end. Now, this does lead us to our last issue of the week, and that is going to be The Amazing Spider-Man Giant Size issue number 1, King's Ransom, written by Nick Spencer, with art being done by Rogue Antonio, with Carlos Gomez and Z Carlos. So this Spider-Man meeting that we talked about last week is pretty insane. This not only includes Iron Fist, Spider-Woman, Luke Cage, Hawkeye, Jessica Jones, but also Wolverine. It's the new Avengers. And things are getting insane as Spider-Man lets them know about the situation with Boomerang. Now, they all hate Boomerang because Boomerang used to be a super villain, but Spider-Man does his best to convince them otherwise, that Boomerang has changed and from being a villain has grown into more of a friend to Spider-Man, even becoming his roommate. And that, what is up with Spider-Man and all these supervillains? And that is addressed by the New Avengers as they pretty much call him out for his PB stunt with Mayor Fisk. He goes from being brain swapped by Doc Ock to being corrupted by an alien symbiote. You know, this could even be Kraven the Hunter in his suit for all they know. It's at this point that Spider-Man realizes he hasn't been that good of a friend. And he really does some critical thinking about that. How he's ignored their emails, you know, their reunion dates, all of that. And it just really takes a toll on him for a second until the New Avengers all, of course, agree to help him find his friend. So Boomerang is held up in a sewer. And it just so happens that Mayor Fisk called all the crime lords all around the city to converge on that sewer spot to kill Boomerang. Now, what they didn't know is he was also anticipating on all these crime lords to kill themselves too as they fought to get that prize. In a weird turn of events, they all brought their lawyers out and agreed to take on this job for more of a financial gain. And this is when we see the New Avengers convey on the scene and do battle with the crime lords. It was insane. It's during this fight that we see Spider-Man break off to the sewer to save his friend. And he does meet up with Boomerang, but they're also met up by another squad who calls himself the Revenge Squad. And things are about to get electrifying, to say the least. Now, I really enjoyed this story. There was so much to read. Like I said, this was a giant-sized issue, and I only scratched the iceberg. I highly recommend going to your local comic book store and picking this book up for yourself. Now, with that being said, guys, that does wrap up today's podcast, and I am just excited to be doing this Marvel thing and really getting a chance to dive in on some books that I normally wouldn't have had the opportunity to have read. With that being said, you can check me out on all of my social media platforms at Job for Cody. And as always, guys, keep it geekly.